CitizenU.org presents The 12.
We're the two teachers.
And we will be deliberating on how to cram for your exam, the AP GOV exam, in 12 deliberative sessions.
Today's finding, the basics.
Andy, let's first talk about the course. AP Government, of course, is a course. What do I need to know?
Well, one, there are 5 big ideas, and this particular course in the exam is trying to get students to link those 5 big ideas, and you can see those 5 big ideas integrated in each of the 5 units.
Yeah, 5 units, Andy, have been prescribed for this exam, and we know what they are. If you don't, you should. Unit 1 is Foundations.
Foundations and Federalism is Unit 1, and then Unit 2 is interactions between the branches, how the 3 branches of government have relationships and interact with each other.
Unit 3 is looking at civil liberties and civil rights.
And then Unit 4 is ideologies and beliefs.
And of course, Unit 5, one of our favorites here at CitizenU, political participation. And how do you and I get involved?
Right. And the nice thing is that we know there's a lot of different students and teachers watching this. You can teach each of those 5 different units in any order that you want. There's different orders to teach those 5 units. So just because we label them out in that order doesn't mean that that's the most effective way to learn.
But Andy, remember, the courses also prescribe some enduring understandings. There are, about 20 of these, and I would know these, and here on the 12, we'll be looking at those.
And then after the enduring understandings, there's really 61 learning objectives, which essentially are kind of daily class lessons from the curriculum framework. And inside those learning objectives are the real substance, the vocab words, the concepts, and that's 123 essential knowledge
Wait, you're
points.
telling me on this exam, Andy, that those who have written the exam, the Test Development Committee, has told us what we need to know?
Well, when you have access to the curriculum framework, and that every teacher and student has access to this through the College Board website, the essential knowledge points are the key points of information you have to know.
Wait, there are essential knowledge points that have been given to us, teacher and student, and the test will not test anything beyond those essential knowledge points.
Well, really, we have more transparency, if you will, on what is fair game for the test from those learning objectives and from the essential knowledge points. But the skills that we're going to get to in a little bit of what students are expected to do with that information, with that content, is really where students are going to score well. If they take that content from the essential knowledge points, are able to show their understanding through those skills.
Well, Andy, it sounds to me like this is why we call it the 12 and not the 1. To cram for this exam, we're going to have to go into much more detail. And here on the 12, coming up, you'll learn about these 12 ideas and topics and enduring objectives and understandings, but we'll get into all those essential knowledge points.
And also remember, in addition to those learning objectives and the essential knowledge points, students should have mastery and understanding of Supreme Court cases.
Well, which cases? How do we know?
Well, there are 15
court
court cases.
Wait, they've mentioned 15 court cases
that are listed, and we'll have a session, an episode on those court cases in addition to 9 foundational documents.
Wait a minute, it's no longer guessing which documents, which Federalist paper should I know? Well, which document should I focus on? But Andy, here on the 12, we'll talk about the essential knowledge points and the 15 court cases you need to know and 9 foundational documents. Ha! Andy, let's talk about those skills. That sounds kind of frightening to me. So beyond just, hey, I know how a bill becomes a law, but how do I need to know that? What kind of skills do I need?
Well, you'll see that in each of the questions that are in AP exams, both the multiple choice and the free response are linked to different skills. So for instance, applying concepts, taking concepts from the curriculum framework, from those essential knowledge points, and applying them, in some cases applying them to a short text.
Andy, my hunch here is, and it's not a hunch, I know because I've looked at this framework, more data. More quantitative and qualitative data. Be prepared to see data sets and not just answer one question, but probably groups of 2 and 3 questions on that data.
You'll see more text-based questions, both in the multiple choice and one of the free response questions. You'll see a short excerpt from a text that your teacher hasn't assigned to you. And the understanding is you'll be able to read that text and then connect to the concepts or answer other questions.
Andy, we're going to see more than just a simple statement and an A, B, C, and a D. We're going to see kind of complicated boxes, grids, by which we, students, will have to compare and say, well, I know these two don't match, these two don't match. Oh, one of these things doesn't belong with the other. Oh, how fun. This test is going to be fun.
You'll also see some traditional questions that you might be used to from your different social studies classes to identify specific essential knowledge points. And then really one of the exciting parts of the exam is the skill of learning how to argue.
I can't wait to make a claim statement.
Make a claim statement, supporting claim statements, looking at the other side of a claim and responding to that side.
And I'm going to, in my arguments, I'm going to use my essential documents, my foundational documents.
Wow, we're going to get to that. We're going to describe that.
Sounds like we need some more sessions.
The test itself is comprised of multiple choice questions and free response questions.
Wait, how many questions are there?
Well, there are 55 multiple choice questions and 4 free response questions. Each of those sections comprises 50% of the exam score.
How much time do I have on those 55 multiple choice?
Well, this is really important because on the 55 multiple choice, you now have 80 minutes.
80?
You have 80 minutes.
That's so much long. Uh-oh, that must tell us that this multiple choice test will have more data sets, more reading involved. Those skills will be really important.
For sure. There's for sure more data sets and more reading. So students should really use that extra time to their advantage. Take your time with the multiple choice portion, particularly on the reading and the data analysis.
Andy, let's just review quickly how those multiple choice questions will look. We've kind of talked about it in the skills, but we know there'll be more quantitative data. There'll be data sets that students have to analyze and assess, and there'll be groups of 2 and 3 or more questions on each of those blocks.
And the nice part about that, and particularly the first question of each of those sets, because it's a quantitative data set, you know the answer's there. The right answer is there. So even if you know nothing about AP U.S. government, in the quantitative data set, that first question, just read the data and the answer's there.
I think we'll need to do a session on that. How about the visuals, Andy? Should we expect political cartoons and pictures maybe?
Oh, for sure. There's going to be more pictures. There's going to be more maps, what they call qualitative analysis. So expect sets of questions on political cartoons, including.
And these comparison questions, I'm a little bit worried about them. But, Andy, I think we'll have to do a session on some of this, and we will.
I think when you look at the comparison questions, you can kind of think of them as kind of a new style true-false question, where you're essentially looking for the row, either A, B, C, or D. You're looking for the row where both the statements are true.
Andy, will there be any just like trivia questions? I like the old, hey, what does filibustering mean? Will there be just some straight knowledge questions?
There will probably be some questions on a filibuster.
Some.
But not as many as students and teachers might have seen in previous.
Sounds to me like the skill work is going to be really important.
It is, but you have more time. Again, for that multiple choice portion, an hour and 20 minutes for those 55 questions, and there are always four potential answers, A, B, C, and D for those multiple choice.
No E anymore.
No E.
How about the FRQs, Andy? What do they look like now?
So there are 4 FRQs, but and you have 100 minutes to do that. You have 1 hour and 40 minutes.
That's a long time.
It is. The FRQ section is still 50% of your exam score. But now each of the FRQs of the 4 is a particular type of FRQ that really, the style of that FRQ will stay constant every year. So we know that question 1 will always be a concept application question where a student should expect to see some kind of excerpt of a text that they've
reading something.
And they've never seen that text before, or they probably haven't. And they have to answer a series of questions. It's a 3-point FRQ that they have to answer a series of questions.
Is that worth
question 1?
Is that worth less than the others?
Each of the FRQs are worth 12.5%, I guess, of the exam score. So that first one will always be worth 3
I think
points.
we'll need a session on that. Well, another FRQ type, though, Andy, is this data. Quantitative data, an A and a B and a C, 3 things to do. And Andy, the first one probably will just be, can you read the chart?
Right. It'll probably be 4 things to do, Dan, because that's a 4-point FRQ for the quantitative data.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third FRQ will always be
I need a session on that.
Will always be a Supreme Court case.
Ooh, SCOTUS.
Remember, you have 15 assigned Supreme Court cases that you're expected to master, but on this particular FRQ, they'll put a case that you might not have read. You probably have not read this case.
Mm-hmm.
They'll summarize that case, and they'll ask you to compare that other case to one of the 15 cases that you're more familiar with.
So if you know the 15 cases, this FRQ at least should be somewhat familiar.
Oh, for sure.
We'll have to do a session on that. I think we will. And then our favorite one, Andy, the argument. But by this point, Andy, the argument, which sounds very complex and cumbersome, the other FRQs not quite as long, but worth the same. That's something we'll have to talk about.
Right. So the first FRQ, the concept application, is worth 3 points. The quantitative analysis is worth 4 points. Supreme Court comparisons, 4 points. The argument essay is a 6-point rubric, but again, each of the FRQs are 12.5% of your exam score.
And this argument essay, Andy, they'll have to have a claim statement, they'll have to have a rebuttal, and they're all based around these foundational documents that we're studying.
And we'll do a session on each of these, but particularly for the argument essay, because it's such a new type of essay for AP government, really the key we know is to make clear claim statements, thesis statements, to repeat that thesis statement throughout an argument essay, to support that claim statement with with evidence, and then even in the rebuttal, repeat the claim statement.
Andy, let's just review. Today we've talked about the basics of cramming for your exam, the AP government exam, and we've looked at the course. And the course is clearly prescribed. There are essential knowledge points that we'll go over here on the 12. We've also looked at the skills, and the skills are playing a much more important role than maybe they have in past tests that you've taken. But then finally the test, and that's what we're gearing up for. In the test, 55 multiple questions in 80 minutes, much more skill work. And then the FRQs, all 4 FRQs, we can predict the style, and the rubrics have already been published, how they will be scored. Andy, the 12 has a lot of work to do, but today we've learned the basics. We're the 2 teachers. No fancy words.
No fancy suits.
Plain talk about issues you need to know.
Just in time.